interesting thing about this truck. It's the prototype truck for the other trucks that were made for Jeepers 1. They made 3 trucks, and this was the first truck that they found. They found it in a wrecking yard, the director and the director of photography. And they went to a wrecking yard, they found this truck. This truck was a flatbed, so it was not yet a van or a panel. And so it was a flatbed truck sitting in a wrecking yard, and the cab and basic appearance of this truck looked just like this. It had the red splotches on it that somebody had put on to protect it from rusting, and it had a bunch of dents. And so it's really interesting that this truck is the reason that the other creeper trucks looked the way that they did. They patterned those trucks after this one, so that was pretty cool. I first saw Jeepers Creepers in 2005. I was at home with a big screen, and I just remember being completely enamored with the Creepers truck. The movie came out in 2001, and I remember I had multiple friends telling me, "Oh, you gotta go see this movie, it's great." And I don't know what happened. I didn't see it until 2005. But anyway, when I saw that movie, I just remember that I really wanted to find out what that truck was. I needed to find out what brand it was, and to me it looked like it was an original box truck built by a factory. So I figured that it was going to be almost impossible to find one like that. But I was trying to figure it out. And so I started doing my research, and in the process, I was trying to find old trucks. My plan was that I was going to build my own. And if I had to build the box, that was fine. And so, man, I went to work. I looked for probably 7-8 months, couldn't find anything. And then all of a sudden I found 2 trucks for sale. And I ended up purchasing those. And when the last one was on a trailer to my house, somebody stopped this guy and he said, "Hey, I've got one of those." And so, long story short, I bought that truck. Same thing happened. Another farmer stopped him when that truck was on its way to my house, and a 4th truck popped up, and I bought that one. And so now I had 4 trucks, and I ended up finding a 5th one. Long story short, now had 5 trucks ready to build a Jeepers Creepers truck when the original truck showed up on eBay. And man, I was just so excited. I told my already tired of buying cab over trucks wife that this was something that was inevitable, and it's something that really had to happen. And she understood, and so she was just awesome through the whole process. Anyway, we bid and won the truck, and it's an interesting story that goes with that. I'm going to try and tell it in 30 seconds. I really couldn't afford the truck, and I remember I had this collector airplane German World War II dash from an airplane. And I had a guy that wanted it, and anyway, I was able to arrange selling that dash, paid for the bid on the truck, and shipping to my house within $100. I thought that was just incredible. So anyway, I started to gather information. I reached out to the movie people, and got in touch with the director, got in touch with a couple of the set people and the producer at the time, and started finding out all the information I could find out about this truck so that I could restore it properly. And they were all super nice. I mean, they all emailed me back, and we started conversations, and I got to know these people, which was really cool. When the movie studio was finished with these trucks after the making of Jeepers 1, they sold them for scrap. And that's just incredibly ridiculous to me. I mean, not to imagine that somebody would actually want these because they're, screen used, amazing trucks. As the story goes, the people who made Jeepers 1 didn't realize that it was going to be so successful, and so they really weren't too worried about saving the trucks. Anyway, they sold them back to a wrecking yard, and the wrecking yard sold 2 of them to someone in Florida, right near where the film was shot, and he had them sitting in his yard as yard art. And so he sold one of the trucks in, let's say, probably 2006. And then I ended up buying this truck in 2008 from him. So I started with the restoration really heavy in 2012 and started with the body. The truck was sitting in Florida, rusting away. I could open the back doors and just see daylight through the top. When a movie studio builds a truck, which they built the box on the back of this truck, by the way, they just do it very quickly. So they would overlap metal, and you can imagine what Florida salty air would do with that. And so it was just rusting away. So I ended up replacing one fender. I had to replace one door. I had to do a lot of patch panels on the cab, above the windshield, the little cowl door, I had to replace that. And then on the box, I had to replace the top and the sides. I was able to keep all of the sheet metal on the back of the truck, so that was good. The doors and everything, for whatever reason, they were fine. And so once the sheet metal was all done, then I turned to the mechanical. And I fabricated all my own stuff, put the engine where I wanted it, backed it up by an automatic, and just tried to make the truck as much like its personality in the movie was. I wanted that. So I tried to make the truck fast and very user-friendly, you might say. I added power steering to the truck, and I even added disc brakes to the truck. So that was fun. So I got the mechanical all together and kind of mocked up where I wanted it, welded everything that needed to be welded, and then went back, made it all pretty. And it's kind of a funny story, so remember that. Everything under the truck was just completely beautiful. And then I had to turn to the paint. And so I did the paint all myself. It's hardened automotive paint. And you know, people were laughing at me because I was out there with a paint roller. I had little artist brushes, trying to get all the correct patina. And I didn't restore this truck to look like it had sit in a field. I did a lot of research and I restored this truck to look like it did in Jeepers Creepers 1. And there's a lot of pictures of this truck in the making of the movie, and you can see how really brilliant the red and the blues and greens were. And so I kind of cheated that a little bit. I tried to make it very vibrant like it was in Jeepers 1, but I also knew that I was going to be showing this truck. I mean, I was restoring it for myself. So I made it to where when somebody went up close to it, you know, it looked pretty good. So I kind of went halfway with that. Got rid of some of the red splotches. I wasn't a big fan of that. So once everything was done, it was time to test out the truck. But I didn't get that luxury because I finished this restoration mostly, I will say pretty close, didn't have the floor in the back done, certain things, around 2015, maybe mid-2015. And those people that I reached out to originally to get information about my truck and how I was going to restore it, they contacted me and said, hey, we're going to make a movie. You know, where's the truck? Does it run? I can't remember where you live. And they were all excited. Got about a month. And so I told my wife, you know, you're not going to see me for a while. Sorry, I'm going to be like working on this truck and finishing it up, getting all the last little details done that I want to get done before they take it. And that fell through. And so I had like this 2-week surge of finishing the floor in the back of the truck. And then, you know, probably 6 months later, they called again. Hey, where's the truck? I can't remember. Does it run? Where do you live? Same questions. And again, I told my wife, oh, I got to do this and this and this and this to it. And then it'll be perfect. Then I can send it off to be in a movie, you know? And then that fell through again. So for those of you that keep up with Jeepers 3, that was the Canada film shoot that they were talking about. Well, that fell through. And so essentially what happened is I was able to get everything I wanted to do to my truck done, and in time for the inevitable. Yes, they called a third time, and this one was a go. It was going to be filmed in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Loaded the truck up, took it. I remember it was in December, and we started shooting in January. One of my favorite stories, or really my favorite takeaway from Jeepers 3, was my involvement in 3. And it was just my not being shy, essentially. I was in contact with the director during the scripting of the movie, and there's a few things that I actually had in that. One of the reasons that the truck has only one seat is because of me. Originally it was scripted to have the harpoon come out of the console, and of course there's no room for a console in this truck. There were some of those things, but we arrived while prep was still happening, and I said, hey, you guys need help. And you know, there's probably union people that wouldn't like that, but the director of prep, whatever, was like, sure, yeah, we could totally use help. And so I was able to do a lot of the things on the truck that they wanted. We had a second cab that was used, which you guys will learn more about that, by the way. There is a fourth truck now because of Jeepers 3. I remember the floor had this stain on it to look like kind of a walnut stain that I thought looked old. Well, no, that wasn't good enough. So they got out this grinder, you know, this sander, belt sander, and just started belt sanding the floor of the truck. And I was like, okay, you know, that's cool. So I helped finish that. But the most interesting story that I'm going to tell you guys is one night right before the back of this truck was going to be seen, we ended up in the warehouse where the truck was. And so we went over to go see what they had done, and they had, you know, dressed the back of the truck up. Well, I opened up the truck, nobody was there, and to me it was hideous. I mean, it just looked horrible. And I'm not really someone who would normally do this, but I was looking at the back of that truck and I thought, this is the way I'm gonna show this truck for like the rest of the time that I have it. You know, I was like, that's horrible. It just looked awful. And by the way, I'm a designer on the side, not a set designer, but a designer. So I couldn't let that happen. So I got in there, and you know what? I did things that I wanted to do. I totally changed the set dressing on the truck. I added some nets, I added some rope, and basically I just made it look good. I made it look like a creeper truck should look. And I'll never forget the next day when we started filming, I was kind of terrified. Honestly, when they opened that thing up, I was really worried about what they were going to say. And I remember they opened the back of the truck, and the director came up to the back of the truck and looked in. And what he said was, who put nets in here? Why are there nets in the back of the creeper's truck? He's not a fisherman. And my heart kind of sank, and he goes, looks good, let's roll with it. And I was just so happy that happened. So that was, you know, pretty cool story with this truck. I'll tell you guys one more story that's really awesome. And again, it's because I wasn't shy. I restored this truck. They didn't change a thing on it for the filming of 3. I restored all the license plates for this truck. And what you don't know is that I made about 40 of them for myself. I just did an assembly line, you know, Henry Ford style, and I distressed and painted all these plates. And of course, I should back up. I purchased the plates from online, but I distressed them. They come pretty, they couldn't be pretty on this truck. So here I have 40 of these old plates. Well, I took 6 of them with me over to Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and it's my truck. So, you know, we would shoot an entire scene, like the police station scene or the chase scene. And I would see my truck sitting over there in a field somewhere, you know, waiting for its next shot. And when we were finished with a scene, I just took tools over there, took a license plate off, cataloged it, and wrote on the back who drove the truck, what scenes it was in, blah, blah, blah. And then took that plate, set it aside, and then I got another plate, put it on the back, and I did that 4 times. So this front plate didn't change on the truck, but the back plate changed 4 times, and so, or 3 times. So there are 4 plates total that came away from the back of this truck during the shooting of Jeepers Creepers 3.